So, mask off. Sound good. Good morning, everybody. So let's start. This is a first for me to open a conference and do a keynote speech, so I'm really kind of stressed and excited at the same time. It's strange because there's nobody here, so I thought of a situation that reminds me of this, and I brought in mind this movie. It's a great movie. So this is how I'm feeling today. I'm supposed to kind of energize everybody and give a good presentation. But I think one thing that I should try to do is kind of think of how you look now at home. So I try to create some personas of the people I'm talking to. So this is one persona. You are sitting there. You haven't showered in a week. Why would you? You are not supposed to go out of your house anyway. So you're ready on the chat to kind of make fun of things that don't work, point all the things that are wrong, and make fun of my Greek accent, you know? So that's kind of like the troll persona. Now, I know that statistically, if we are 1,300 people, about 130 of you are not wearing any underpants, and that's just 1 in 10. It's a known statistic, very solid one. So I'm imagining that as well. And then, as a parent, the third kind of persona I keep in mind is the ninja parents out there that are supposed to keep kids while working from home. And I wanted to give you a little story because I think this is not, for people who don't have kids, this is not that obvious. So every day in the pandemic, in the lockdown, when you have kids, you wake up and you run to your kids' room and you want to make sure that they look healthy. You don't care if they are healthy, you just want to make sure they look healthy. Because if you go to the kita and then the kita people see your kids looking a little bit sick, then they might send you home with them. And this is absolutely impossible to work out. So you have 6 meetings, one after the other, and suddenly you have to change everything to pick up your kids, go back home with them, and they'll make a mess. So yeah, thank you. If you're one of these parents, thank you very much for spending the time to hear us talk today. Now, the title of the talk is Do More with Less. And I put this here more of like a self-mockery, because I use it a lot, as you will see later with what we're doing in the company I work at. But I also think it's a little bit of corporate BS, because everybody wants to do it, everybody wants more with less, but what does it actually mean? And how do you actually achieve it? And I want to stress the fact that you can never really do more with less. What you can do is you can invest in processes, you can try to make your methodologies better to actually be able to achieve more. And I will argue that it's never with less, it's with a bit more, and just it has to be a lot more valuable at the output. Okay, so let's make it very, down-to-earth, concrete. So you have 4 oranges, you have some orange juice, and doing more with less, literally, means I take 1 orange away from you, and I want you to make more orange juice. Now, if you're Greek, like me, you would probably add some water in there and go, hey, boss, here it is, more juice. But that's not what we are talking about, right? We're talking about really more output. So I will argue this is about methods. And just to give you again an illustration, if you're this guy, then I'm sure you can grab a bunch of oranges and you can squeeze them hard enough, and he can probably get more juice out of a single orange with how much he can squeeze it, right? So this is kind of method 1, squeezing oranges with your hand. Then 15 years ago, I was a teenager. Yeah, I was a teenager, and my mom would come in the weekend and she would say, do you want some orange juice? Doesn't matter if I said yes or no, she would still make it. And she had this little device here in the middle. She would take about 60 oranges, chop them, take about half an hour to chop them, then about half an hour to squeeze them. She would come in all sweaty, like she worked for a whole weekend, and she would bring this glass of orange juice that was so precious. And this was a lot of work, and I had to drink that. And if I were to tell her, hey, mom, do more with less, I think she wouldn't be very happy. So now you can go to Coop, you press a button, out comes the juice into your little glass. You pay about 1,000 francs for it, but it's worth it. And if you go to Galaxus, you can buy a device for 60 francs that you pull a lever, like old Archimedes told us, and then you get this orange squeezed as if you were the mountain. So really, it's about methods. This changes a lot what you can achieve. Okay, enough irrelevant stuff. Let's talk about the situation right now. We are in a pandemic. People are working from home, measures out there. And how does this relate to doing more with less? Well, some businesses are obviously in serious trouble, and they cannot really do anything about that. So what I'm saying is not really referring to them. I'm talking about the ones where you're working from home, but your board, your managers, they still expect you to deliver the same output, or perhaps even more if growth is what they were planning for this quarter and the quarters before. So you really have less resources, but you want to have more output. And I want to make it specific to sales, for example. How can you sell a product with less interactions with your clients? Because you're at home. You cannot take them for dinner. You cannot sell your product. So what do you have to do? You have to find a new medium. And that's why I'm sitting here today behind a camera. That's why this conference is now doubling attendees online, because video is the right medium. And we've been using that. But the question is, are we using it right? So I will try to kind of give you some examples that you can relate to. So I'm going to switch now to my iPhone that is sitting here on my desk. And I'm going to show you something that I'm sure you have experienced yourselves. So you have a camera that somebody thinks they can use for a meeting, right? And you've had meetings with people that thought, now that I can work from home, I can actually take my phone with me to the kitchen, and I can make my coffee. You can all enjoy my chin while I'm doing it, and then I can mute or unmute it. It really, it's a question of whether I know how to use it sometimes. And this is annoying, but people think it works, right? And this is a good experience. I think after a few months in working from home, we're starting to realize that this is not really a good experience. You see the image shaking, you don't get the right view. Sometimes I look at you, sometimes I'm not looking at you. So this is not really the best kind of experience. And we've made some moves in the right direction. So going back to the regular view now that looks again proper. We've bought some microphones. I'm sure you're praising each other for your setups at home, buying some webcams, making it look nice, maybe putting some green screen, whatever. And we've made some steps, right? But if you are the CEO of a large group, if you are talking to your board about a change of strategy, if you are selling a product to a huge client, you don't want to risk that things don't work out, right? You don't want to risk that you leave the mute. So yeah, you don't want this to happen, right? So, and you have to think about the message and the branding and the quality of the output you want to have. I'm sure you all face the situation where your people are trying to share their screen. That's like the big thing. Now I'm going to share my screen. And every time somebody wants to share their screen, they take a moment to let you know that they're doing it. So they'll go like, let me find this. They're switching tabs. They're looking for this thing they want to share. I think they're actually hiding all the stuff that they don't want you to see. But anyway, they find it, and then they go like, I'm sharing now. Everybody gets excited. Bam, they share the screen. And then they always ask, can you see it? And this thing happens a lot, and we call it kind of grandpa points in my team. So it's like the situation where you don't know how to use your stuff, and you always have to get confirmation that it works. But if you think about the messaging, if you really want to have an impact with what you're doing, you cannot do it like that. You cannot be sitting there sharing your screen while you're talking about a change of strategy for a multi-billion operation. It's not possible. So what do? Well, you have to elevate production a little bit. So video has to be better. And you wouldn't be surprised to know that this, for almost 2 decades now, is possible to do. You just call a company. It's not anymore just a TV business that can do it. You call up a company, they come in, similar to the setup we have here now, and they will sit behind a lot of hardware, as we heard before. They will have some cameras, different cameras, backup cameras, audio devices and all that, and they will deliver a production. But that's not cheap. You have to pay usually 5 figures to do this 2-3 times per year. So it's a significant amount of money. And if you go back a step and you believe what I said, that you want to have better quality out of your videos, and you want to do this 100 times in a year, well, you're not going to increase your budget by 30 times. This is really, really unlikely. So what are you going to do? Video costs a lot to do it properly, but you need it properly lots of times per year now. And this is what Seervision is doing. This is the company I founded with Reto and Konrad about 4 years ago. We have a background, Reto and I, in robotics, programming, AI, and this kind of stuff. And our third co-founder, Konrad, he comes from the video production industry. So we started this company with the idea that we can democratize high-quality video productions. So you can have it anytime you want, on-premise, and you can run it basically 100 times a year at the cost of just a handful of times in today's world. So how does this work, right? How can we make video work at scale? There are 3 main pillars of technologies that we are using. One is automation, second is remotization, and the third one is virtualization. These were the fanciest words I can find to make me look intelligent. So I'm going to go through them a little bit and explain what it is about. So let's think about video, right? So the first thing you want to automate is the mundane tasks, the things that people don't want to do, the things that cost a lot of labor time, but they really don't bring the necessary output. And you also want to minimize logistics somehow. You don't want to send stuff around. So automation really is about removing these tasks, making them easy, the mundane, simple tasks. One of them is really operating a camera. Now, you've been looking at the feed coming from one of our cameras, one of our automated cameras now, while I'm presenting. And in the past, you would have a person there behind the camera. They would be looking at the viewfinder. They would be processing inputs coming from a director who would say, you know, maybe give me a closer view, maybe go a bit wider and whatnot. And then they would adjust the camera and do that again. So this was a job they would have to do. If the conference takes, you know, a couple of days, maybe a whole week, somebody would have to be behind that camera that whole time. And this really is one of these bottlenecks that you want to remove, you want to automate. And this is what we did. So now with algorithms, with computer vision, with neural networks, with control algorithms, and with robotic cameras, essentially, you can make a computer do a similar type of job. And that's what you've been looking at now. So if we switch now to the live interface of our system, you can see how it recognizes that there's a person on the stage. You can see a green area that if I move out of, it will be tracking me. And you can see that now the conference is actually taking a cut out of this and using it as the live feed of the stream. Now, the second word is remotization. This is the part where you want to decouple the location of where something is happening with the place from where you operate it. Okay, and we were able to have intelligent systems on premise that move cameras, right? So the second step would be the people who operate them. If they have to be there, then this is a bottleneck. Because imagine if you want to do 100 productions in a year, you want to do one every couple of days, you would have to bring them in, send them out, bring them in, send them out so many times. It's a problem. And they themselves, as service providers, they wouldn't be able to have a production right after another one because they would not have the time to travel. So really, remotization is about taking all the people that you can away from the set, okay, so that they are not stranded on location. Let's make it a bit visual again. So the business is happening somewhere. There is an interface I was showing to you, and this is directly connected to a computer that is running these intelligent algorithms. So remotization is about splitting this with a channel in between so that you can sit at home and you can have a computer at home, and you can, with this computer, interface with all the intelligent systems on premise. Now, the troll is going, I know this is VPN, we've been doing it for 20 years. And it's true, VPN has existed for 20 years, but 20 years ago, it was like a whole weekend project to set up a VPN. Now, with a service called Zero Tier, for example, a little bit of advertising, that we are using, you can do this in 5 minutes. Few clicks, any person who can use a mailbox can actually set up a VPN. And this is a prime example, in my opinion, of how we build on existing technologies and new methods to end up offering more with less. So that's one thing. And the second thing you need is a way to connect to this device and actually have a real-time interaction with it. For the ones that were trying to use remote desktop over the last decade, you remember the times where you would move your mouse and maybe 3 seconds later you would see it somewhere? This was not possible to do. So if I'm trying to control multiple cameras over a link somewhere else, I have to have this real-time, low latency. Doesn't work, right? So there is a technology, or better, a product called Parsec, which has been made for gamers. So the use case is a gamer wants to play a first-person shooter from a computer that is running somewhere with good GPUs, and he wants to stream all that back to his computer. And this is a use case that makes sense somehow today, and it's one that you can use. If you want low latency and so on, you want to use such technologies. You don't want to develop them. So that's what we've been doing, using these technologies to be able to offer easy VPN connections so you can sit at home, you can connect to any computer anywhere in the world, and you can operate it in real time. So let's look at an example of this. We're going to cut into the live feed of my colleague Laurent. Excuse my French. So Laurent is sitting at home. He's operating the interface that you see now. So you can see that as I'm moving on his screen, the latency is extremely low, and he can actually control what's happening on the feed. What's up, Laurent? There you go. So he can hear me. That's good. Can you maybe, I was watching the stream, and I think it shows a bit of my summer weight. Can you maybe zoom in a bit, create a better feed from the camera? There it is.
Just to have
so you see it now. So he can actually do this from home. And this is pretty cool, right? So that means that soon, any production you want to do anywhere can be handled in this way. So the last part is virtualization. This is perhaps the most difficult word to explain. Virtualization is the part of removing hardware, essentially. So you want to take specialized equipment, audio mixers, video mixers, graphics engines, and instead of having specific server racks on-premise, you want to be able to put them somewhere else. Where do you want to put them? Of course, in the cloud. In order to do this, and this is the part that is actually hard. So if VPN was hard 20 years ago, this is where virtualization is today. So it's going to be another decade, I think, before virtualization is for anybody. So you click a few times and then it's done. So what you want to do is you want to take your specialized equipment, make some interface to a general purpose computer, and once this works, that general purpose computer doesn't have to be anymore on-premise. It can go up in the cloud. So you go from this situation, and it is a little bit like that, I guess, right now, and having servers and cables and stuff, and people operating those because they don't know how to connect and so on. You want to go to this magical experience, one cable, click, and then you can operate it from anywhere. OK, so let's recap a little bit of what I've been saying. We have intelligent systems on-premise that can do some of the mundane tasks by themselves. We have remote operation, so you can sit at home. You can do a production in the morning, a production in the evening that are 200 kilometers apart. It's pretty cool. And you don't have to have a lot of hardware on-premise. You can actually have simple interfaces to the internet, and then you can use the cloud. So here's what you can do. You can have your DOPs in Dothraki C. These are your servers. They're intelligent servers. You can have productions happening in King's Landing or in Bravos. And then you can have the interface all the way in Casterly Rock. And this is not just fiction. We can actually do this. We've been running servers in Belgium with productions in Switzerland already. So this is really something that is possible to do. And what does this mean? You can actually now provide high-quality output, good messaging, better branding, 100 times a year for the price and a little bit more of what you would do 2-3 times per year before. So now I'm thinking of everybody a bit like this. You're sitting on your resources. You have been able to protect them. Maybe you threw a pack out to buy some services, some little bit more hardware, some better mics and so on. But you are actually able to go from 5 good quality productions a year to 100. You had to spend a little bit more. And I think this would be my kind of take-home message. We shouldn't talk about doing more with less, but rather do much more with only a little bit more. If we can do that, then I think we have succeeded. And I would argue that the principles I talked about are transferable to a lot of industries. You can actually automate mundane tasks wherever possible. This is the switch to intelligent systems I talked about. You can actually decouple operation from location. This is the remoteization principle. And of course, this is a trend that is quite strong. Everybody knows it now. You can try to put everything that is now special in the cloud. That's it. Thank you very much. I'm Nikos. We are doing very cool stuff at Seervision, and I wish you have a great conference. Thank you very much.
Nico. And we have actually a couple of questions. One of these is, for example, what happens if we have more than one person that the camera is pointing?
That's a good question. So the neural networks that are running in these intelligent systems that I talked about, they identify people in real time. So now that you came on stage, the system has assigned a specific identifier to you, and it had one for me before. So it is able to differentiate between us. So if things happen, then it can really tell that you are Mirko and I'm Nikos. That's essentially what happens.
Thank you. So it means if I will start jumping on a stage, the camera will follow also me?
So we are typically doing productions, as I said before, for like corporate messaging and things like that. People don't jump a lot. Maybe Steve Ballmer jumps a little bit. But usually you don't have this kind of situation. So we have a deadband. This is a space where you can move, because always speakers are a bit nervous and you don't want the camera to move. So you set a safe space. So I think in this case it wouldn't work unless you jump really high.
Thank you very much for your talk. And we will now have the next talk at 9:45. Thank you very much for watching.